Hi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for making time to join us today for yet another exciting video. A conversation really that I'd like us to look into today, which is what is really purpose? Using the kingdom lens. Like I told you, I am playing here. I'm not taking other people's deal for it. I want purpose the way God wants purpose for me. So yes, welcome. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking onto this video, and I'm hoping that you will stay with us until the end, because I'm going to drop something right at the end that I think would benefit you very much. And if you're returning, thank you so much for returning here. I love that you're here. I love to be here. Now I'm enjoying this, right? We are on the third week, and I love having this conversation with you. And I'm hoping that you are engaging. You are giving me your questions, ideas on the chat. Let's have these conversations, right? So let's get right into it. What is purpose, right? And I think I'm going to be addressing around 4 ideas on this video. Don't mind me looking down. I'm looking at my book. I'm going to be talking about what is purpose. How does God outwork this? What case study can we look at? We'll be looking in Jeremiah. And what about you? We'll be talking about you and your purpose journey. And lastly, discover and pursue your purpose. I hope that gives you a framework of what we'll be dealing with today. And let's jump right into it. Thank you again for joining me. I do not take this for granted. You could have been watching other videos, but you are here and you've clicked onto this video. So, definition, right? I am a definition girl. I am because that gives you understanding. And according to, who's this? Hold on a minute. Let us find out. Obviously I'm gonna have to cut this because I can't put this here, but let's find out the definition here. So this is what the Oxford Dictionary says. The reason for which something is done or created, or which something exists. It's that simple. It's why does something exist? There is a reason why something exists. Why it's key for us to have this plain, simple definition is because we have complicated it so much that people have literally become stunned and don't know what to do. Why does a kettle exist? Kettle is to heat up water. If you end up using a kettle to declare something with it, right? That is not the purpose why it exists, but you might use it for that, right? But that is not really why it exists. And this is critical to have this distinction because many of us have used our lives for purposes that were never intended for, but could be used for it, but never intended for it. I think I'm a teacher at heart, right? Let's break this down even further. What is the chair's purpose? Why do you think a chair was made, right? A chair was made for us to sit on. But guess what? We stand on it when we want to get something. We push the door, we push it against the door. We put things on it. Was that the intended purpose? No. But we use it for other intended purposes. So most of us are living our lives like these chairs. Some people do utilize it for what it is for. They actually sit on. But some people, like the people that I know, stand on it. Was it meant for that? No. Can it be used for that? Yes. Now, let's talk. Think with me here. If you use this chair for something that it's not intended for, do you think you're using it to the best of its ability? Is it serving its purpose? No, it's not. And that's where I believe is the problem with the human race. We are using ourselves, humans, not the way that God intended for us to use ourselves. And I want us to have this conversation. And I think I want to even take it deeper and say, where did we go wrong? When did we start using us, if that's good English, for things that we were never intended for? Maybe not in this conversation, but in other conversations. How then do we use it, right? So that is the first point. But the second point that I'd like us to talk through is, now that we know what purpose is, can we look at what God did? And I love the story of Jeremiah. And it's key here that I do this, but I'm gonna cut you out. But I want to know, how old was Jeremiah when God called him? Oh, that is scary, though. I think 17 is fine. So, with this, the second point is, how does God outwork, right? Now that we know, I think maybe before I go into that, I want to share or talk about this idea that in the beginning, not Meliswa, not you, not your friend, not your mom, in the beginning, God created, right? So this implies that God is creator. Then it tells us a lot of things. Please go and read Genesis, for one. It tells us a lot of things for the first 6 verses. But in the 7th verse, guess what God does? God creates, he says, let us create man out of us, like into our out of our likeness, into our, I'm paraphrasing, right? What God did there is that God, when he wanted the fish, guess where God put the fish? In the water. When God wanted to create the trees, he spoke to the land. But when God wanted to create you and I, he spoke to himself. Like produces like. I want this to be our foundation when we speak about purpose, because we have confused who has created us, and therefore we don't know our purpose because we don't know who we come from, right? Now that we know that God decided to make you and I, he purposed to make you and I, he then goes further to tell us why he has made us. He says he created them in his likeness and his image. He made them male and female, to be fruitful, to multiply, to subdue the earth. You know how that goes, right? He is not confused about what he wants you and I to do. Subdue. He wants us to subdue the earth, and what else? And that. So it's because that's not my point, but I think I needed to have that backdrop to say what I'm gonna say. Because if you do not see God as your creator and you embrace the idea of a Big Bang theory, I think we cannot be in this conversation. Or we can be. I can respect you. You can sit in my presence. But I will lose you because I ascribe my existence to somebody else's idea, not mine. Because all and happenstance. Because then it means truly we are just floating by and at the mercy of the universe, as we now talk about the universe. But I don't believe that is the case for kingdom people. Kingdom people were created by God, right? Let's drill down to what I'm trying to say, right? Let's go to Jeremiah. Please get your sword, because who goes to war without the sword? Jeremiah 1, verse 5. It says, before, right? And I'm going to emphasize the points where I want us to look at, right? Before I formed you in the womb, in your mother's womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Now, guys, that is as packed as you will ever find it. Because with us, if we can understand this, if we can embrace this, trust me, discovering our why would be the easiest thing, right? Now, this is what God allows us to eavesdrop in his conversation with Jeremiah. Literally, this guy is around 15, 16, 17. Nobody knows how old he was. Well, I'm thinking people are conflicted on terms of how old he was. Others say he was 12. Others say he was 17. So take your pick. I don't know. But Jeremiah was a teenager when God came for him. That is why I'm passionate about you, girl child, because if you can get your why at a very young age, you will be dangerous to the enemy. That is what we need in the kingdom, right? Anyway, let's get back. God tells us that before he formed you and I in the womb, what does that say? What does that mean for us? It means that when I think about it, not my parents, though I love them, formed me. It is God who formed me and used them to bring me to this world. God says, before I formed you. So if you can imagine it this way, that there's something that God does, but before he does that very thing that he's talking about, there are certain things that were set already. Okay, let me say it this way. Because, guys, let me tell you one thing. I'm a how girl. I'm going to break it down to the simplest form, because for me to be able to get it, I need to understand it, right? So that's what we're going to do here. Now, there is the act that God says before he formed. Now, the act is the forming. Now, before the forming, there's certain things that God did. What are those things? Because forming is an outworking, right? We know this. It makes sense if we're following logic. Before I did this, this is what I did. So maybe before I got out of the house, I wore a jacket. Before I got out of the house, I decided where I'm going. Now, getting out of the house is an outworking. But there are things that I did before I got out. Do you get it? I hope you get it, right? What is this thing that he did? Just now I made an example about wearing a jacket, or I decided where I'm going. Those are the things I did before. Now, this is what he did. He says, before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nation. Oh my gosh. What does that tell me? It tells me that there are things that I was decided for way before my mother and my father got into an act and created me. Meaning, I'm not a mistake. I'm not somebody's idea. I cannot be caught up in the idea that, no, I'm born here, I'm whoever, and so and so. And those things are good. But what's critical is what he tells Jeremiah. He says, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nation. This is a 17-year-old boy or 13-year-old boy, whichever camp you are in. Guys, this is amazing. For me, it tells me that it removes so much heaviness on me, because there are certain things that God had already done for me, had already decided for me. I want to conclude this piece by saying this. Jeremiah is giving us a view into God's thinking when he makes us. And this is a view that you would do well to sit down with and nitpick and unpack it and eat it for yourself, so that you deal with certain misconceptions once and for all and you finally conclude them. One of them is God existed before I was born. I know that is a common sense statement, but it's not so common. What I mean is, what I was supposed to be existed way before I was born. Therefore, I'm not here on this world trying to figure out what it is. I am here aligning myself with what God says and then outworking it, right? Because that's going to be our third point. Our third point is, where does that put you? Now that we know that there are certain things that God had in mind when he made you, when he made Jeremiah. He made Jeremiah a prophet to the nation. Now, let's say Jeremiah went and studied physics and was in some white coat somewhere. God says, prophet to the nation, that's who you are. That's what you are. Maybe not who you are, but what you are, right? And how that outworks will look different. And I think that's my interest in this channel, to actually talk about those intricacies that you are sensing that God is saying X to you, but you don't know how that will look like. That's why I exist, right? I love walking people through what purpose looks like, right? Anyway, now there are certain things that I think once I understood what God was calling me for, I settled. One of them, and I think a person who was very critical for me in this journey of understanding this was Ndate Miles Monroe. He talks a lot about predestination, right? That way before you, which is not really him alone. I mean, Ephesians talks about that. That's what I mean. So predestination, you were predestined. There's something that you were predestined to do. The Old Testament, the New Testament is littered with things that are telling us that were meant for us way before. He says in Matthew, he talks about how we are the light of the world and the salt of the earth, and who hides the light under a bushel and stuff like that. And he says, therefore, walk out your life and do good works so that your Father may be glorified in heaven. Somewhere in, I don't know where, but it talks about how there are good works that are set aside for you to do. So I think I'm saying all of this to say, you are not an afterthought. You are not man's idea. You are God's idea. You are here as part of a bigger picture. However, you've got to know the Creator for you to know what the Creator created you for and what He wants you to partner with Him on. Am I making sense? I hope I am. And I think those are the conversations that we want us to have, because I believe that the reason we're not having as much impact in our 9 to 5 is because we really don't know why we exist. And if we did, we would be dangerous. If I knew that I'm called to be an accountant, trust me, that is what I'm going to be at. I'm going to be that. I'm going to excel in being that, because that's what God told me, right? Which I think brings us to our fourth point. You have to discover it for yourself. Nobody gives you a blueprint and then that's it. And then you walk. You don't go to school for it. You don't go to school to get it. Why? Because you need to discover it. Sorry guys, the birds are just making noise here. But I think it's critical for us to understand how then do we get our purpose? How does it come about? And I think it's key for me, for us to ask those questions. And that's my passion. That's what I live for, right? First thing, you've got to ask the right questions. We're not asking the right questions. And I think I'm going to speak about this in my other videos around what is actually stopping us from living out our purpose. And the 20-year-old me, was it able to discover what God wanted for her? No. She was so fixated in being a lawyer that she never even quietened her mind and heart to hear what God has to say. But I think, like I was sharing with you, if you haven't seen that video, please go back. I think it's the second video in this channel where he talks about why am I not in the courtroom? I speak about how in 2013, I started to ask intently, and actually take steps around answering, why am I here? And 2014, then I took it a step further, or God took it a step further and asked, why am I a woman? So once I've answered why am I here, I'm supposed to be doing what I'm here to do as a woman. And that combo is powerful, because he knows why he needs this voice. He needs this girl to do what he has called her to do. So you've got to discover why you are here. And once you do, this is my deepest prayer, that you have the courage to pursue it. You are going to need the courage. I'm going to exhaust you when I talk about pursuit, courageous pursuit, because some of us know why we are here, but it doesn't look like something that we want. Or culture tells us, there's no money there, therefore don't do it. And that's why most of us are stuck in things we don't love, because it doesn't make financial sense. So that's why I'm saying that it's going to need courage. And I'm going to unpack all of that. It's another, I'm excited about that part as well. Well, I guess maybe let me let you in. The reason I'm really excited about that part as well is precisely because 2017, after my daughter graduated, the first time exiting out of that wilderness was God weighing it in my heart in terms of starting this network, Courageous Pursuit Network, where he wanted to talk to his girls who are doing things. And he was saying, why don't you pull resources? Why don't you come together? Why don't you courageously pursue this in community? Because some of us are everywhere alone doing what God has called us, and we get blows and we get hits, we get whatever, but we all alone. We have no one to compare notes with. We have no one to share notes so that I can know that I'm on the right track. And I think this is partly why I wanted to come on here, sit in front of the camera on a weekly basis, so that somehow, if you are sitting there all by yourself and you are confused and you are asking yourself things, you at least have this girl who's talking to you about her experience, so that you can look inward and say, at least I'm not alone. At least I've got someone who has gone, I've got somebody who has gone before me, who's doing what I want to do, and therefore I can stand, right? I believe, the underpinning scripture for CPN, Courageous Pursuit Network, is Joshua 1:9. I believe what made Joshua courageous to pursue is because Moses had done it, right? That gives you a bit of, at least, man, this thing can be done. It doesn't have to look the same, because that's why God kept saying to Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you go. He did not expect him to show up as Moses, no. But at least he's able to say, at least Moses did this. At least Moses did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is how it looks like, and therefore maybe I can, right? And yeah, I'm digressing, but I think it was key for me to just touch on that, because for you, let's say you finally say yes, right? Let's say you finally say yes to God, and like Jeremiah 1:5, I have called you, yada, yada, yada. And like we know, Jeremiah was like, no, I'm young, and but then he eventually said yes. Let's say you eventually say yes. What should you be aware of? What kind of things does this purpose look like? Oh dear, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, and I'm hoping that you will share this, or you will invite others to come, and let's talk about what does it look like when we finally say yes to God. How does he he prepare us for the call before ourselves? Woo, Jesus. But anyway, thank you so much for hanging around with me up until this point. There is I'm going to link on the description box below something for you to do, and let's see where it takes you. If you say to me, I'd like to know how this works, I'd like to know purpose and those type of things, and let's get together, let's do this. We are here to plunder hell and populate heaven, and the only people who can do that are people who are clear on why they are here. Clarity is key, and I want to walk alongside you to help you do that. And yeah, I'm gonna see